Hey, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Michael Moran. I'm a subsistence hunter and an avid outdoorsman who lives on the Flathead Reservation. The reason I'm making these videos is because I'd like to inspire new outdoorsmen, new hunters. I know that not everybody has the opportunity to grow up hunting like I did. I started when I was like 5 or 6, jumping in the truck with my grandpa, and I've been in the woods ever since. I believe that environmental awareness is super important, and the best way to build that is through a passion for the outdoors. So here we are. Um, like I said, I'm a subsistence hunter. I grew up low to limited income. I want to show how accessible this is and show that, not that everybody can do it, because you really do need to be physically fit and you need to have dedication to what you're doing, not only to improving yourself, but also improving your skills, improving your knowledge of the outdoors. And so it really does take a dedication. So this is my bag dump, pretty much what I absolutely have to have. Now, in a survival situation, realistically, I would probably only need a knife. But this isn't survival. This is the gear that I've accumulated over the years. So we will start with what's most important, obviously, the knife. I always bring a knife, and I actually always bring two. I bring a second foldable one, smaller, that, if I need to, I could just throw it in my pocket, whatever. And the other thing I always bring with a knife is a knife sharpener. I believe that's really important because when you're working with bones, you tend to dull knives. That's just how it goes. So, along with that, I used to carry a kit, but nowadays I just bring, not a bandana, but a bone saw. Now this came part of a kit, but to lighten the load, I just took it out and, wrapped it in a bandana. And you will see I bring a lot of these because these are very, very helpful for a lot of different situations. You can wrap things in them, put them on your head, get them wet, use them to dry off, use them to clean yourself. There's just so many applications. And actually, we will get into this later, but there's other important reasons to bring those. So another really important item that will be a run-on phrase this video is mountain money, TP. Now, if I see you out in the wilderness using this as fire starter, I'm going to look at you sideways. This is very important. Always bring it. This isn't absolutely necessary, but I bring rubber gloves because you'll be working with blood and guts, and you just don't want any of that on your hands. I will also put a pretty durable Ziploc bag in here, and inside of it I will carry a snake for my gun, just for like any obstructions or if I need to do a quick clean, and a little silk cloth for my binoculars or spotting scope. Now let's talk about safety in the outdoors. I was always taught to go hunting with a buddy, to go hunting with somebody. I know that's not always reasonable, especially in my last few years, due to time constraints or life situations, whatever it is. I go hunting alone more often than not. And so one thing I always make sure to do every single time is make sure to let somebody know where you're going to be. And try to be as detailed as possible. Don't just be like, oh, I'm going to be up that ridge, Just say, I'm going to go from here to there, and I plan to be back at this time. Make sure you communicate that very, very well to somebody. It's very important because when it goes down and you're the only one there, it's up to you. This is my solo first aid kit. Obviously I know how to use everything in here. One thing this doesn't come with, and neither does this big one, this is a multiple person was, neither of those come with tourniquets. That's if, you know, things really, really go south, is when you need a tourniquet. I advise to go out there to buy a tourniquet and to practice how to use it. I think it's very important to practice tourniquet use, applying it on yourself, applying it on somebody else. For me, though, personally, and I don't recommend doing this, but I'm going to go back to the bandana thing. This is another important reason why I bring bandanas. I specifically bring 2 of them, and I wrap them together just in case if anything ever went that wrong. I'm going to show you quickly how you can use simply 2 bandanas to do this. Quickly, I would like to demonstrate how I would apply my emergency tourniquet if things ever really did get that bad. So I would take my first bandana and I would wrap it under and tie it at the top and rotate it just like that. Now I would take a stick or something hard and rigid. In this case, I'm using my folded knife, and I would put it under just like that. And with my other bandana, I would do like that, and I would stick it under the rigid object, or in this case the knife, and the other bandana. So I would take that object and I would twist it. You keep twisting, you twist until you stop bleeding. And once you see that blood stop, then you can take your bottom rag that you haven't tied yet and secure that object down. And that'll keep it, I would double knot it, but that would keep it from moving, and it might save your life. Another thing that's really important to bring, almost as important as your first aid kit, is some sort of fire starter. In this bag I have a lighter and some matches. I usually have a flint and steel in there, but I used my last one up practicing, so I gotta get a new one soon. But I always have a lighter and matches at least with me. I think I said this in my last video, an important piece of gear to have is a butt pad. When I was young, I used to do a lot of truck hunting because we couldn't get out and hike a lot, but ever since I've been a teenager, I've always liked to get out and hike and get on top of knobs and glass, and this is easily one of the most important pieces of gear to have just to be comfortable. And I think comfort in the backcountry is huge. That'll bring you a long ways. You will be amazed how far comfort can get you. So I'll bring extra layers. I just think it's important to have extra layers just in case temperatures drop. Hypothermia kills really, really fast. And I'd like to take just a second to talk about my bag here. It's nothing fancy. I don't even know what brand it is. I just had a little bit of extra money, and this is what I got. It's pretty simple. I'm not even quite sure what size it is, but this is usually what I bring for a day hike. And it's mostly just for carrying, like if I need to carry out quarters. I used to bring smaller backpacks, but they're just not good if you have to pack out meat. If I have to go multiple days, I'll stack this to the brim, but most of the time this is just my day pack. Another thing I really like to bring with me is a tarp. This is a Grand Trunk tarp. It comes with stakes. You can configure it into a tent, a hammock, whatever you want. I typically use this as a tarp, not only to put meat on, but also sometimes to hang above my head when it's hot. Just another comfort item. So, I also have in here game bags, of course. Like I said, I'm a deer hunter primarily, and I primarily take does. So, I typically only need one of these, but I carry extra just in case, because you never know. I might see Big Hank sitting on the side hill one day and I just might not be able to resist. So in some of my more accessible pockets here on the side where it clips around your waist, I will bring a snake for my gun just in case. And sometimes I'll put a rain poncho in there. I don't know where mine is. It should be in there, but it must be in my other bag. And I will also put my rangefinder. It's important to carry a rangefinder because you always want to know how far you're shooting. Not only to make ethical shots, but also it's really hard to tell in the backcountry sometimes. There could be fog, there could be mist. You just always want to be prepared. That's the main goal of this video, for sure. Another thing I'd like to talk about really quickly is some of the clothing that I'll wear. So I will always bring a hat of some sort, especially because I do a lot of hunting in the early season when it's hot. Sunburn, heat exhaustion, whatever. I like to wear this one because it's the best as far as sun repellent. And, you know, it's nice to just get it wet sometimes. You know, you could put water in it and put it on your head or, you know, whatever. And then if I'm not wearing that, then I'll simply wear like a baseball cap or something. I don't need everything to be camo. I'm not one of those kind of guys who has to go spend $2,000 on a pair of camo. You know, even if I'm just wearing green sweats, sometimes that's what I'll wear. And speaking of pants, like I said, a lot of the places that I'm hunting have tan, yellow grass. And so I like to wear these kind of pants over camo a lot of the times. Because even early season up in the mountain, there's a lot of grass that's colored like this. And so I will wear a camo top to kind of break my silhouette so I'm not just one solid figure. Another piece of important gear, almost as important as game bags, is rope. You'll never know when you need to, you know, hoist some meat up in the tree or tie something down. There's so many uses for rope, so I always carry some paracord or some rope. So I think it's important to wear boots that are comfortable. You don't want blisters, you don't want your feet to get sore, especially if you're doing a lot of hiking. If I'm in the low country where I usually am, and comfort is the most important thing to me, I wear boots similar to these. So these ones are camo, and they're they're like rubber. They're very flexible. There's not a lot of rigidity, so I try to take caution to not roll my ankle or anything of that nature. When you're in low country, when you're just covering miles and, you know, there's not a lot of rocks or hills or debris, it's usually not a problem. But when I'm in the high country, when there's a lot of blowdown timber, when there's a lot of jagged rocks and steep terrain, I like to wear a really rigid boot. You know, it's got to have a lot of ankle support, and it's got to have those tie down laces where, you know, you hook them and you tie them, because that, I believe that's the best way to get the best cinch, especially around your ankle where you need that support, is typically with those boots. They're less comfortable to me, but I will take that in the form of safety all day, every day. The last thing I'd like to talk about is my sidearm setup. I bought this specific holster because it goes under the arm. I find that that's the easiest place for me to keep it out of the way of everything else that I'm wearing. I'm typically not a guy who likes to put it on my chest because I feel like, you know, it's pointing at your shoulder sometimes. I just don't really, it's not a very comfortable spot. Plus I have my binoculars right here most of the time. So I bought this rig because it goes over just like that. You know, sidearm goes here. You can carry some extra mags and it ties down to your belt so it doesn't shift and move a lot. And when I first bought it, I kind of thought, you know, this would wear on my shoulders, kind of like it would just wear down like my pack does, but it's not too bad. I actually prefer it right here because it's out of the way of everything. And I feel like, especially when I'm training, to use my sidearm, it's a lot more accessible right here. And with that, I've pretty much covered everything that I take with me on a day hunt. It's really not that much. I don't spend a whole lot of money on gear, and I don't believe that you need to, especially if you're just hunting for meat like I am. So if you watched all the way through, I appreciate you watching. I hope that this video helps somebody who maybe is interested in going hunting and never had the chance or the opportunity. If you enjoyed my video, please like and subscribe. That feels cheesy for me to say, but I would really appreciate it, and I know that it would help my channel. So, thanks.